I have seen some memes floating around on social media, and I strongly suspect that you have seen them as well. Basically, the crux of it is that they are knocking down and making fun of the fact that there are a lot of practical things that school did not teach us, you and I, growing up. And again, I think those are funny memes. But instead of knocking and putting down and just focusing on the funny part of it or just making it funny, of the things that we didn't get as we were growing up, let's turn that around to a positive for our kids. We can do this a lot of times when we as parents see things that maybe we missed out on or we wish that was a part of our childhood. We have this opportunity to include it in our children's childhood. So today we're going to talk about some life skills that you have just got to teach your homeschool children this year.
Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, where you'll learn tips and strategies that will empower you to home educate your children. I'm Leigh Nguyen, a homeschool mom of over 12 years, which includes 2 graduates. When I started homeschooling, I was pretty much on my own and was desperate for encouragement and help. My mission is to be a source of encouragement and help to you. Whether you are just beginning your homeschool journey or you're deep into the homeschool lifestyle, Little by Little Homeschool wants to help you stay the course because all the time you are investing into your children is completely worth it. If you're ready to take your homeschool to new levels, keep listening.
I am sure that your parents were and are just like mine. They taught you many things as you were growing up. Most likely, you were also in school like I was. There was a huge lack of time. I say that for my childhood, school was my job from 5 years old up until I was through 18 and a half. It was my job. It took the priority amount of my time. It probably took the best time of myself of the day, and same for you. And so our parents were trying to fit in some things around that. But also, our time at home outside of school was manipulated by school because we had homework, we had tests to study for. We also couldn't stay up too late to go and do something because we had to get up early the next morning, or we couldn't go away for maybe a long weekend. And I know you can, but there's times that you couldn't go do things because you had to be back for school on Monday. And so there just wasn't a lot of free time to be able to really dive into understanding all the little aspects of life and being able to watch your parents live their life and seeing how they lived and developed life skills and how they even used their life skills. Now, regular chores, just the every day and the over and over and over again every day of chores that need to happen at the home, whether it is making beds or cleaning dishes or it is wiping down toilets, what all of the things. Those just are a part of family life. If you are feeling like you are drowning in that right now, I don't want you to be drowning in that at all. The Tidy Home is a one-stop shop to setting up an established chore routine for your entire family. There is a specific lesson as well as other lessons woven in throughout it, all about your kids and the role that they play. And the Tidy Home goes along really well with today's episode, which isn't all about chores. Today's episode is a bit broader, but if you are looking at needing to narrow down and really focus on some of the stuff within the home, and doesn't mean it's not quite outside the home too. We talk a little bit about that, about taking care of the garage and property maintenance and that kind of stuff. I would encourage you to go over and check out the Tidy Home. Now is a really great time to get going on that so you can start off this homeschool year as you are getting into the thick of it and just starting off on getting your new curriculum, your routine, everything established, but also getting this routine established. Can you even imagine how good it will feel after, let's just say later on the fall, or even by Christmas, way even before Christmas, being like, yeah, this is how we do it. We have followed the Tidy Home and it has created a solution for you. That's my goal. You can get all the information for it at littlebylittlehomeschool.com/tidy home, and the link is in the show notes for you as well. When I began homeschooling, my main focus was all about the academics. But hmm, now that my kids were home all the time, it was a mess. It was more of a mess because not only was it just the toys and that kind of stuff, but everybody was home for all the meals. And then we also had a homeschool space, and there's just more going on and more in the house. I also found myself more busy. I didn't have that margin of a little bit of time. I had a great responsibility and a big weight upon my shoulders to educate my children. I really needed some help. And that's when I began to say, I don't just have to focus on academics. I could actually teach my kids how to live well, effectively, and to be able to carry through with everything that they need to do in a day and be prepared. I was like, wait a minute, I have this perfect opportunity to prepare my children for the real world, that world that we went into after going to school for so many years. And suddenly we're thrown into the real world, and school didn't quite prepare us for this. These life skills I'm going to talk about here today, and life skills in general, can help prepare your children for the real world because they're living in it. And that's how also will help them prepare for it. But we have to be intentional. And so I began to be more intentional to include life skills into our quote unquote homeschool. But I also saw it as a bigger and broader mission that I had so that my kids would then launch out into the world and be prepared for it. Yeah, there's going to be things that come up that they're not expecting, but they have enough of these skills and they have enough stamina, they have enough tenacity, they have enough ability to just bounce back and to kind of wing it at times that it wouldn't be a big deal when there were unexpected things that came up because they had enough information and enough that we have done together that they felt prepared to step out into the world. So I wanted them to be able to navigate the world very easily, to be able to walk out of our home. And at first, as they're walking out, it's just for a couple of hours when they go get their first job outside of the home. And then it's maybe for a day here and there. And it just gets to be bigger and bigger. And it's not that big of a deal because we've been preparing them for this all along. Let's dive into this list that I have. But one last thing before I do so, you most likely have children of different ages than another mom that is listening to this, and you might have some ages that are the same. You may have some babies, toddlers, preschoolers, early elementary, late elementary, middle school, high schoolers. You might run the gamut of all of those. The list that I'm going to give you today is obviously it's not going to be an exhaustive list because I would be here for way longer than you have time to listen, but I'm going to give you a lot of different topics and it's then going to be your job of looking at it and say, what is age appropriate for my child? A lot of these are skills that you can start young and then build upon them. So, for example, they're helping out with cleaning up in the house. You might start off when they are young and they are just putting away some light, small toys, such as stuffed animals, because that's safe for them to be able to carry as they're still kind of wobbling around. And then they can carry other things and put them away. And eventually they might be helping out in the kitchen and you might have them helping empty the dishwasher and you allow them to put away the plastic cups because you have those on a low cabinet shelf that they can easily put away. And then they work their way up to being able to eventually empty the entire dishwasher, everything of the glass and all the things, and they're okay. So I want you to think of all of these chores in a way that they progress and they get bigger and bigger. So let's dive into it. I suggest getting a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil and writing these down and then I also suggest taking a look at this list and not saying you have to do every single thing on the list, but just look for opportunities to be able to weave them in. Some of these you might say, we have not been doing that, or, I really feel like this is the year to be a lot more intentional in this area. And that could be some of the goals that you might have for this year. You might say, you know what, I want to be more intentional when it comes to including my kids in making dinners, or I want to be more intentional with my kids in having them help out with outdoor work and gardening that we have going on. So I would highly recommend picking just a couple of them, maybe two, three. They're going to be super intentional, but keep the rest of them in the back of your mind and look for opportunities to be able to include your kids. Remember, when we include them, it's probably going to take more time. I can attest to that all of the projects, all of the things that we have included our kids in, my husband and I would talk, we're like, we could have had that project and that thing done so much faster. But do you know what? The fruit comes when your child then will be able to go and do those things. A lot of this stuff I can just ask my kids to do and walk away, and they'll do it because they're teens and they're young adults, and it's not like they have been not doing any of this stuff. They've been doing it all for so long, it's not a big deal, and I don't have to sit there or stand there and give them a rundown of exactly how to empty the dishwasher or how to clean up after dinner. Just this evening, after dinner, I'm recording this episode in the evening. After dinner, my husband James was out on a at a meeting that he had to go to, and so as the two boys were here, and I said, "I'm going to go for a walk. You guys got the kitchen?" Yep. I came back. All the leftovers were stored and put away. Everything was washed. The dishwasher was loaded up. The kitchen table was cleared. The counters are all wiped down. They know how to do all of that. So it definitely pays off. Just know that it will take time in the beginning, but the payout will come. But it's not just a payout for you. There's going to be a payout for them as well because they'll be able to take care of their own home and be able to clean up at after dinner and the kitchen and such things. Okay, are you ready? I've been jibber jabbering for long enough. Let's go through it. So the first one is just basic chores. That's just things like making your bed, cleaning up your room, knowing how to vacuum, knowing how to dust, knowing how to empty the dishwasher, all of those things. And again, the tidy home, that's where it's at. For all of these basic chores, that is where it is at. The second thing I want to mention here is the home repair. Where can you have your kids come and help out? Maybe it's something just simple like changing out the filter for your air conditioner. Maybe it is something a little bit more complex. My kids have joined James in all kinds of projects. We had an old farmhouse that we fixed up, and they were involved in all of the things. We have built an addition, and they were involved in all of that. The things that my kids know how to do because they actually did that. We would skip lessons, we would skip school days. Shh, don't tell anybody that, right? And they would go and do that instead, or they would be up late in the evening helping him with something, some type of home repair because he didn't have time during the day, but he had time in the evening to do it. And then we would sleep in, and our lessons and other things would start a little bit later. Things even just like home repairs of knowing how to change out a toilet or knowing, hey, the toilet's clogged. How can we take care of this? Or the sink is clogged. How can we take care of this? Instead of, say, having to hire somebody to remove a toilet and install a toilet, your child should be able to do that. And I'm not saying that this might sound sexist. It's not trying to be sexist. My boys know how to do this very well. I'm sure my daughter and I could probably figure it out. But you know what? We have a lot of other skills that we know how to do as well. And so this doesn't have to necessarily be a boy skill, a girl skill. And we included her in a lot of those things. She enjoyed watching and learning, but a lot of it didn't stick with her as far as the home repair. Now she enjoyed the decorating and all that kind of stuff with me, and that's just what she enjoyed. Next one is cars, learning how to even just the basic stuff. Do they know how to put air in their tires? Do they know how to change a tire? Do they know how to maybe change oil? How far do you want to take it? You can take it far if you want. I have a 16-year-old who is still working on a car. He's got a project car and he can change all kinds of things. What did he say? He just finished up the suspension, I think. I don't know. I just listened and ask some questions at the time, and it kind of is like in one ear, out the other ear. I'll go out and look because that's how I have to learn. I have to go out and look and actually see it. But taking care of a car so that they can just do at least the basic stuff, and you might have children who are interested in stuff that's more complex, then give them more complex stuff. Next is property care. So things like taking care of the lawn, mowing the lawn, knowing how to maybe plant some more grass seed if something doesn't have enough grass there. If you guys get snow, knowing how to remove snow, landscaping, taking care of animals, whether that is a dog and a cat or you live on a farm and it's a lot more animals, knowing how to take care of plants, how to even plant plants, how to grow a garden, whether it's flowers or vegetables, how to put the seed in and how to water it and how to take care of it. And how do you then harvest? Say it's green beans. How do you harvest the green beans and how do you cook the green beans? When it comes to your property and stuff, it can be endless. How about finances? Talk to your kids about budgets. Can they really afford things? Maybe they want something that's out of your budget, and you say, hey, okay, well, let's see how you can make some money in order to be able to purchase that thing. So, money management, knowing how to file your income taxes. Imagine that. Things like banking, how to even open a banking account. Things like paying bills, how to do that. I mean, a lot of that is online now. A lot of that is stuff you can just set up as automatic payments, which is something very different from when I first started paying bills. But knowing how to look at what your income is and then how much you actually have to spend and not to get yourself in over your head into some financial difficulties. Cooking, you can start all the way back at the basics of meal planning, and then actually grocery shopping. And you can tie in some of the finances and the budgeting. And you might have your children come up with some elaborate meal. And you might say, okay, well, let's go and price that all out first. And they might say, oh, I don't have enough for that because they planned steak and they planned all kinds of stuff that would have been out of the budget. And then, so once you have the meal planning, you do the grocery shopping and you actually have the prep, and then you can tie in some of the chores of cleaning up afterwards. How about things like time management? Instead of thinking, oh, I have an infinite amount of time, actually looking at the day and saying, well, how can I actually spend that time? I feel like a lot of homeschool kids come up with a lot of hobbies and a lot of interests and a lot of things that they want to do, and there just is not enough time in the day. I have that same problem with myself sometimes, and also just working right now with my 16-year-old on this again, because this is something that you just do over and over and over again. And how are you going to fit this in? And what time does this? We have to reverse engineer sometimes. You have to go to work at 3 o'clock, so you only have X amount of time, and you want to fit this much in. How great would it be to be able to launch out into the world and know how to manage your time? How about things like making appointments? Actually making a phone call. Some places you have to make a phone call. My favorite is when I can make appointments for places and it is on an app and I can just go ahead and ding, 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 push the buttons and pick the time and I'm all set. That's my favorite. But there are still some times that we have to make some phone calls. So teach them how to do that. How about something like goal setting? Saying that they want to work towards a certain goal. Maybe they want to get a job at a certain place and they have to have a certain amount of experience or a certain amount of knowledge. Or they just have basic goals of wanting to read a certain amount of books or learn some new type of skill. How can you teach them to set goals? And then what are the steps in order to reach those goals? But then also, what if those goals just aren't attainable? Knowing how to then take a step back and reevaluate, or also then maybe dealing with some failure. Some more is, let's see, communication skills. Things like writing, maybe writing out a resume or filling out applications. Things like speaking to people and looking them into the eye as you speak to them, shaking hands. That is a really big thing, especially if you have a child who wants to be an entrepreneur. And I know that young man, I remember James teaching the boys when they were younger and they got really into it, just shaking everybody's hand. And it was so cute. It's still cute now that they're older, but I don't tell them it's cute anymore. I just say you look like a good, strong, strapping young man. Job interviews, preparing them for job interviews. Some places that my kids have interviewed for, there was a phone interview first, and we kind of talked through it. And then there was an in person interview and just kind of talked through it. And what can you possibly expect? And also understanding that these places that are interviewing, especially if they're teens that they're interviewing, they understand they're interviewing teens, but just feeling prepared going into a job interview. And how about things like critical thinking? You could introduce some logic and some fallacies, things that they could actually go and look at. They can evaluate maybe commercials or ads or political campaigns or whatever popular thing, whatever Hollywood's saying, whatever is going on, being able to critically think about somebody else's argument or somebody else's position and not just being like not just flying off the top of your head in anger and lashing out to somebody, actually being able to stop and critically thinking about what their response can be. How about personal hygiene? This can get a little bit touchy, especially for, we'll say, some elementary tween age boys. Am I right? But just as far as their personal hygiene, you start off with this baby and you completely are taking care of everything for their personal hygiene. And, they're in the bath and you're teaching them how to wash themselves and they learn how to take a shower on their own and wash their bodies. And eventually they can wash their own hair and they can comb their own hair and take care. And it just continues on with being able to take care of themselves, their body. Teaching our children about puberty and body changes in a way that is not shameful and just is this is what's to expect and this is why this is going to happen and this is a beautiful part of your body and this is how God created it and just talking about it in such a positive way, but doing so in a right time frame. So knowing your kid, knowing their maturity, but not waiting until those signs of puberty start showing, starting and talking about what to expect beforehand. Things like taking care of themselves when they're sick. Now, when they're really little, you just kind of take care of them and you do things and you don't really explain. But as they get older, you can explain to them, this is why I am taking care of you. This is why it is important for you to get some sleep. This is why it is important for you to stay hydrated when you're not feeling well. And then just nutrition, teaching them just about what is good to put into their body and then what it actually does to their body. Just overall health. How can they take care of themselves well? Exercise. How can they work their body and grow their muscles and build strength in a way that's going to be able to keep their body doing really well so that they can carry out the mission that God has for them? Things like personal safety. How to be able to be aware of what's around them, taking care of themselves so that they do not get themselves into dangerous situations, and then they know how to respond if something does come up. Things like first aid and how to manage an emergency and what to do. I could go on about all of these for a very long time because all of it is stuff that I probably have stories for all of my kids. But before we end, I want to tell you the number one. We're going to say it's because this is life skills. We'll say quote unquote life skill. The number one life skill, the number one thing that if you can impress upon and that you can teach your child, and this starts when they're a baby and as they get older, all the way and even beyond them launching out of your home, and that is making sure that they know that their relationship with God is a priority, showing them what that is like, modeling to them, telling them why, teaching them how to have personal devotional time, teaching them how to pray, teaching them how to be discerning when it comes to how they spend their time and who they spend their time with, and maybe a church body that they get involved in, and just being able to discern what other people are saying online and on the internet, and being able to then take that and measure it against the word of God. When it comes to wisdom and how to live, make sure you're reading to them in Proverbs and discussing and talking about the wisdom that is in that, but having a personal relationship with God, knowing that in all of life's ups and downs and all that will come in their life, that is the one steady rock that they can depend upon. And when they are uncertain and unsure about what to do, that's where to go, to turn to God in prayer, read the Bible, and just continue to nurture that relationship with Him, because ultimately this relationship has to be between them and God. And at a certain point there and they're growing up, you kind of step out, and but we get to teach them that their faith has to be their faith, and it can feel overwhelming, but it's exciting as well. So now that you have this big, huge, long list, like I said earlier, go ahead and pick two or three that you want to be super intentional about this year, and then look for opportunities to be able to include your children in these different areas. Sometimes it helps to tell your kids that you're going to include them in these things. So, say, for example, the cooking, you might say, hey, Friday night is going to be family cooking dinner night. And if you tell them, they will remind you and you won't be able to forget and you won't be able to bow out of it. Trust me. If you are looking for some help with your just regular chores, just getting that done, what needs to be done, how to get it done, just getting a rinse and repeat, having that absolutely solidified, that is where the Tidy Home is going to come alongside you. And you can go ahead and get that information and join over at littlebylittlehomeschool.com/tidy home. Friend, you've got your marching orders. Have a lot of fun with this stuff. Just know that you are taking steps every year. You are just building upon what you have taught them the previous year. So have some fun with it.
Thank you for listening, friend. I'd love to connect with you more. You can find social media links in the show notes, and share this episode with a friend who could use a boost to her homeschool. See you back here real soon.